Let's get started with our first news. Borralho thinks Robert Whittaker is close to retiring. In a recent interview, Borralho didn't hold back when talking about the current state of Robert Whittaker's career. The Brazilian middleweight, who is preparing to face Nazarini Mav at UFC Paris on September 6th, spoke candidly to the Schmo and gave his honest thoughts about the former champion. And according to Borralho, the signs are becoming more and more obvious. Robert Whittaker might be done with the fight game. Now let's be clear, Borralho made sure to show nothing but respect. He started by saying, "Robert Whittaker is a legend. I'm a big fan of his. I respect everything he's done for the sport. He's absolutely one of the GOATs in the middleweight division." But even with that respect, Borralho couldn't ignore what he's been seeing lately. He pointed to Whittaker's most recent fight, a split decision loss to Ilia Topuria, as a moment that revealed something deeper. "I watched that fight," he said, "and I'm telling you, something didn't look right. His body language, his eyes, it just didn't look like someone who still wants this. It looked like someone who's tired, someone who's had enough." And when asked if he believes Whittaker still has the fire to go into a 5-round war, Borralho didn't hesitate. "I don't think he wants to go through that kind of battle again. I just don't believe that anymore." It's no secret, Whittaker has been in this game for a long time. He's fought the absolute best of the best. He's been through wars with guys like Adesanya, Yoel Romero, Jared Cannonier, and Marvin Vettori. He's taken damage, rebounded, lost, won. It's been a roller coaster career filled with highs and lows. And while his skill level remains elite, Borralho feels like the mental side may be fading. "Sometimes it's not about the skill," he explained. "It's about the drive, the hunger. When you've been at the top, defended belts, been in main events, and fought the hardest fights over and over again, eventually you just get tired." And I feel like that's what's happening with Robert right now. It's not that he can't do it, it's that he might not want to anymore. Still, Borralho didn't suggest that Whittaker should be forced out or that he's done for good. "With all due respect, I'm just calling it like I see it. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe he comes back stronger than ever. But based on what I've seen lately, it just doesn't look like it's his moment anymore. I think he's very close to retire or something like that." Whether Whittaker really is close to hanging up the gloves or just going through a low point, only time will tell. But when someone as observant and respectful as Borralho speaks this honestly, it definitely makes you pay attention. Before moving to the next news, we have one quick request for you. We're constantly working on improving our content to earn your love and support. That's why we'd truly appreciate it if you could take just a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Moving on to the second big update, Shawn OMalley gave his take on the highly anticipated title fight between Merab and Cory Sandhagen. During a recent interview, Shawn broke down the matchup with some really thoughtful insight. And whether you love him or not, you have to admit Shawn knows how to break down a fight. He started by saying that if Merab can get a solid grip on Cory, it could turn into a very long night for Sandhagen. That was his main point. He believes that Merab's pressure, strength, and insane gas tank could be the deciding factors in this fight. But he didn't count Cory out at all. In fact, Shawn had a ton of respect for Cory's skills. He talked about how Cory looked against Usman Nurmagomedov, a super tough fight, and how Cory did an amazing job keeping the fight competitive. Cory created scrambles, kept his hips high, and didn't allow Umar to get into dominant positions, Shawn said. That's not easy to do, especially against a guy like Umar. Then he followed up by pointing out a really important detail. Umar and Merab are both great grapplers, but they're very different. Umar is more about transitions and precision. Merab, on the other hand, is all about relentless pressure, chaos, and grinding you down until you break. But man, Shawn said, if Merab gets a hold of Cory, I just don't see him letting go. Merab feels so strong, like really strong. Especially in those clinch and wrestling positions, his gas tank is ridiculous. He just doesn't stop. You push him off and he's back on you in half a second. Shawn continued, if I had to make a pick, I'd probably lean towards Merab, but it's tough to count Cory out. I truly believe that. Skill for skill, Cory is one of the most talented fighters in the entire UFC. He's got more tools than Merab, but what Merab does have, he's a master of. It's like Kabib. You know what's coming and you still can't stop it. And then Shawn addressed a potential future scenario if Cory beats Merab and calls him out for a title defense. Would he accept his answer? Absolutely. "I wouldn't say no," Shawn said. "Even if I'm coming off 2 losses, if they offer me a title fight against Cory, I'm not going to turn that down. That's a fight I've wanted. That's a fight I believe is destined to happen." Shawn even revealed that he tried to make that fight happen before, when the co-main for Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier fell apart. Shawn threw his name out there to step in on short notice. "I told the UFC, give me Cory, I'll fight him in 3 weeks. But the timing just didn't work out. The UFC had other plans. Cory versus Murab was the fight to make." Still, Shawn made it clear he and Cory are on a collision course. Whether it's for a belt or not, that fight is coming. It's just a matter of when. Now, let's move on to another hot headline. Du Plessis says Israel Adesanya was the best opponent he ever faced. In a recent interview with B-Way, UFC middleweight champion Drakkar Du Plessis opened up about the toughest and most technical fights of his career, and one name stood tall above the rest: Israel Adesanya. When asked to reflect on the most difficult opponents he's ever stood across from in the octagon, Du Plessis didn't hesitate. He said, "That's a hard question to answer, but if we're talking about the best guy I ever faced in his domain, then yeah, it's Adesanya." That right there tells you something. This isn't just about brute strength or pressure. This is about elite level skill. And Du Plessis, who now holds the UFC's middleweight crown, admitted that the Adesanya fight was the one that made him the most nervous heading in. "I had looked up to him," Du Plessis explained. "I had studied him for years. He was the benchmark." Imagine being in that situation, stepping into the cage with the man who had ruled the division for years, someone you admired, someone you had watched, analyzed, and respected long before the fight was even booked. Du Plessis knew the danger he was dealing with. He said, "Knowing what he's capable of, it gave me chills. He can catch you at any time. He's so sharp." And you could feel that respect in his words. Adesanya might have lost that night, but Du Plessis wasn't fooled by the result. He knows exactly how dangerous Izzy still is. That fight wasn't just a title bout, it was a masterclass in high-level striking. 2 of the best going toe-to-toe. "It was a hell of a fight," Du Plessis continued. "A tough night at the office for both of us." But Du Plessis also made an interesting distinction, saying that if we're talking about pure toughness, there were other names worth mentioning. Guys like Brad Tavares or Sean Strickland, they could take a beating. Those were battles too. And that's fair. Strickland in particular is known for being one of the grittiest fighters on the roster. He just walks forward, absorbs shots, and keeps throwing. Tavares has been in the game forever and is as durable as they come. But technically, Du Plessis made it clear Adesanya was a cut above the rest. "But technically," he said, "Adesanya was the best I've ever faced." That's high praise coming from the current champ, a man who just beat Izzy, outclassed others, and now sits at the top of the middleweight mountain. Even in defeat, Adesanya still commands the respect of his peers, and that tells you everything you need to know about how special this guy truly is. As for Du Plessis, his reign is just beginning, but with statements like these, he's making it clear he knows where the bar is, and he's ready to raise it. Let's slide into another big news drop that's got the MMA world buzzing. Kabib Nurmagomedov just revealed that Usman Nurmagomedov will face Paul Hughes again. Yes, you heard that right. After months of silence and speculation, we finally have confirmation straight from Kabib himself. The rematch is officially on. Usman Nurmagomedov versus Paul Hughes 2 is set for October 4th in Dubai. Now, if you've been following the PFL closely, you already know how controversial their first meeting was. Usman walked away with the majority decision, but it was far from a clear win. Many fans and analysts felt like Paul Hughes had done enough to take the victory, especially in the later rounds. It wasn't a robbery, but let's just say, the MMA community was split right down the middle. And now, they get to settle the score. What makes this announcement even more intense is how it came out. Kabib was speaking during an interview and casually let the news slip, but the way he framed it gave us a clear look into just how important this fight really is. He said, "This fight was hard last time. Now we'll see how they deal with Damig. I've always told them don't ask for advice. Deal with it yourself. That's how you grow." That's a very Kabib mindset, tough love and self-accountability, but it also shows the level of pressure on Usman, who remains one of the most technically sound and composed lightweights in the PFL. He's undefeated, but after that close fight, the invincibility aura took a hit. Meanwhile, Paul Hughes has been on an absolute tear. The Irish standout has gained a ton of respect in the MMA scene for his grit, IQ, and well-rounded game. His confidence heading into the rematch is sky high. He believes he won the first fight, and now he's determined to leave no doubt the second time around. And with the venue set in Dubai, you know this will be a spectacle. Usman, with the Dagestani legacy behind him, fighting in a region where he has massive support, and Hughes walking into enemy territory, looking to shock the world. This fight is more than just a rematch. It's a clash of styles, of mindsets, of mental toughness. Will Usman tighten up the gaps and make a statement? Or will Paul Hughes rise again and force the judges or even the fans to acknowledge his greatness? October 4th, mark your calendars. PFL's biggest lightweight rivalry is about to be reignited, and we're all here for it. Now let's move on to a very interesting development. Michael Venom Page, better known as MVP, has officially set his sights on a future clash with none other than the reigning UFC welterweight champion, Leon Edwards. Yes, you heard that right. Even though MVP has been active in the middleweight division, stepping into the cage with top-tier names like Sure Bullet and most recently booked against Jared Cannonier, he hasn't forgotten where he truly wants to make his mark, and that's welterweight. During a recent appearance on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani, MVP didn't mince his words when discussing a potential showdown with Edwards. Leon Edwards is a great matchup for the UK, MVP said. I'd love for that fight to happen next year, and yes, it would be at welterweight. If that fight's on the table, I accept it 100%. I want it to happen in the UK, that's where it makes the most sense. That's a bold statement. Not only is MVP calling for a fight with the champ, but he's planting the flag for a massive UK showdown that would no doubt sell out in minutes. A Page versus Edwards fight on British soil, that's a headline event just waiting to happen. But that begs the question, why is MVP still taking fights at middleweight if his end goal is clearly at 70? Well, he explained that too. I want to make noise, he said. And right now, nobody at welterweight is bringing the fire. It's all politics. Who can you fight? WO is even available. I called out everybody and got no response. So I said, okay, I'll just get another fight at middleweight. Cannonier is an amazing fighter. Sharing the cage with him is an honor. MVP's logic makes sense. He's not sitting around waiting. He's staying active, staying visible, and most importantly, keeping pressure on the welterweight division while building credibility in another weight class. And let's be real, a win over Jared Cannonier, who's currently ranked an 8 at middleweight, would be a huge feather in MVP's cap. It would officially put him on the radar in the UFC rankings and give him undeniable momentum, regardless of the weight class. Still, there's no doubt about it, Leon Edwards remains the ultimate target. MVP sees that fight as a career-defining opportunity, not just because of the belt, but because of the symbolism. Two UK fighters, both flashy strikers, both with loyal fan bases, battling it out in front of a home crowd. It's the kind of fight that could head up a UK stadium card, make global headlines, and create a moment in MMA history. Now it's just a matter of when and whether the UFC is ready to pull the trigger. Until then, all eyes are on MVP versus Cannonier, but after that, keep your eyes on Leon Edwards. This story is just getting started. And finally, Chael Sonnen is absolutely convinced that the UFC is setting up Ilia Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan as the next big fight. Now, even though Ilia has publicly said that he'd rather vacate his lightweight title than face Arman, Chael Sonnen just isn't buying any of it. Speaking to MMA Junkie, Chael said something bold. Outside of illness or injury, this is not just my opinion, I'm telling you a fact. It's going to be Arman versus Ilia. That's 100% the plan. According to Chael, something has shifted behind the scenes, and all the signs are pointing in one direction. He brought up some personal insight. I was the best man at Arman's wrestling coach's wedding. His coach is Daryl Christian. I've also spoken to Coach Sam Calavetta, who's been working closely with Khamzat, and guess who was in the room during a recent session? Arman. In Chael's eyes, the location of Arman, the company he's keeping, and the conversations being had are not random. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Chael believes Ilia is following a very strategic playbook. Remember when Ilia recently said, "I don't want that fight"? Chael says that's the trap. That's what the great fighters do. They deny first. Anderson Silva did it. He'd say no, let it sit for a couple of weeks, stir the pot, then accept the fight out of nowhere. Sometimes he'd even drop a fake injury report. Boom, more hype. Then he'd say, "I'm fine, let's do it." And according to Chael, Ilia might not even realize he's using that same tactic, but he is. The UFC loves this type of drama. It builds tension, headlines, and eventually pay-per-view buys. As for Arman Tsarukyan, Chael Sonnen thinks the timing couldn't be better. He said Arman has gone through absolute purgatory to get to this point. He's paid his dues. He's stayed patient. He's seen guys like Paddy Pimblett get all the attention while he kept grinding in silence. He fought killers, went through brutal camps, passed all the licensing requirements, stayed ready, and now it's finally his time. Matchup-wise, Arman is the toughest fight for Ilia, Chael said. Right now, fans love Ilia. He's hot, undefeated, champion of the world. But Arman, if he gets his hands on you, you've got a problem. And honestly, he's not wrong. Arman has that wrestling pressure, that tenacity, that grind that could neutralize Ilia's striking. And on the flip side, Ilia has the speed, power, and precision to shut Arman down on the feet. It's a chess match between two dangerous, young, hungry fighters, one with the belt and the other with the momentum. So despite Ilia's public denial, despite the hesitation, despite all the noise, Chael Sonnen is putting his foot down and saying it with full confidence. This fight is coming. UFC wants it. The fans want it. And soon, Ilia and Arman will collide.